Shupushanda. Shupushanda. Hey everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and thank you for returning to our Let's Start Healing podcast. I know you're wondering what I was saying when we came on just now. That is a Bengali greeting. Shupushanda. It means good afternoon, good evening. You know, we're universal here at Let's Start Healing. And I say what we have in common can change the world. I think we're all connected. And that was ringing true with the comments after our first episode. I can tell that this conversation we're starting is resonating, and I am loving it. You want to talk about spirituality and God, and let's keep it going. Let's start healing. I'm excited for you to meet our guest today. His name is Jeffrey Tate, and you can call him Jazz because Jazz has never met a stranger. His spiritual path will resonate with people who follow universal spiritual truths. I've known Jazz for years, and I have to say that he is one of the most content people I know. And contentment for him is about a 10 on the happiness meter for you and me. He manages a bar here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he is a man of many talents. He's very health conscious as far as food and fitness. And in recent years, he's trained many people in fitness. He's a cyclist. He's an avid golfer. And when it comes to spirituality, I would have to say that Jazz has a confidence that I really admire. He and I have had so many conversations about spirituality and God over the years, and I have to say he is in a greater place of knowing than I am. And an example of what I'm saying is there's a prayer that I really love that the late Wayne Dyer would share. And I like to meditate on this prayer so that I can rely on it in times of fear and doubt. And Jazz, on the other hand, embodies the message of this prayer 24/7. And I'm saying this not being aware that he even knows of this prayer, but I just know it's a great example for me of where I am and where he is. And I truly want to be in a great place of knowing about God. I mean, that's what this is all about for me. I love the path of knowing God. But I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about and share just a smidgen of this prayer to let you know where he is, I feel, in his consciousness. And this is a prayer, it's only a smidgen of it, from a book called The 3 Magic Words that Wayne Dyer has shared in the past. And it starts out, I know that I am pure spirit, that I always have been and that I always will be. There is inside me a place of quietness and confidence and security where all things are known and understood. This is the universal mind, God, of which I am a part, and which responds to me as I ask of it. This universal mind is the answer to all of my problems, and even now, the answers are speeding their way to me. I needn't struggle for them. I needn't worry or strive for them. When the time comes, the answers will be there. I give my problems to the great mind of God. I let go of them, confident that the correct answers will return to me when they are needed. And as I said, this is just a segment of a longer prayer from the book 3 Magic Words. And it is an example to me of the consciousness of the person I'm about to introduce you to. So let's get started. Let's meet him and let's start healing. Thank you for joining us, Jazz.
It's a pleasure to be here, Adrianne.
so much I want to talk to you about.
That's why we're here.
Well, okay, I'm going to start out with this basic question I like to ask, which is, do you consider yourself a seeker or a healer? And I will say, because I know you so well, I don't think that you're a seeker because of comments that you've made to me about me being a seeker. And I perceive you as being someone who has found, went looking and found what you were looking for. So is that true, or are you a seeker in some way?
I think a part of it's true. I think at no point in the spiritual journey do you ever get there. Wherever there is in your mind, I don't think you ever get there. I do believe through initially seeking, when you're initially seeking, I do some of those things come to you. And so it takes that thirst and that drive and that hunger for that gets satiated in a place where you're comfortable with your understanding or your perception of things. So and that way I would classify it as, no, I'm not actively this big seeker, even though you never stop seeking.
What would you classify yourself as?
I would classify myself as being someone who is spiritually aware of himself. Mm-hmm. On this journey, initially, if I go back probably to the late 80s, early 90s, I was raised in a very religious family. And I believed some of the stuff, a lot of the principles and stories, and I believed a lot of biblical stories, and I believed in a lot of things that I was taught and that I was conditioned to believe. But I also had questions, and so that's the journey of seeking. What works for me? What jived with my value system, with my way of thinking, with my belief system, what rang true with me, and so there's a seminal event. I moved out to California when I was very young. I loved the views, and nobody was as Christian-y or Judeo-Christian in the same pool as they were where I came from. And they professed different faiths, but they didn't treat me any differently. So that started me to just thinking, like, that person's still cool even though they wrap their head, or that person has beads and they kneel in front of an altar and light incense, but they still good. So that didn't jive with my conditioning that either you believe this way or you didn't, or we didn't accept you. So that didn't jive, because I was like, they were still cool with me.
What was your religious conditioning that you're talking about?
I was raised a Christian Baptist. My mother was raised a Christian Baptist, and she raised her children a Christian Baptist. My sister's a preacher. But it affected me differently, because I realized if I was born in Afghanistan, I most likely wouldn't have been a Christian. If I was born, depending on where I was born and what part of the world it was, it dictated largely what was going to be my conditioning. It didn't make that right. And so that began my quest. And the seminal event for me was when I moved to Georgia in the early 90s. I didn't play golf then. I'm an avid golfer now, but I didn't play golf then. So I was selling insurance. I did health benefits. And I got sent to a conference, and it was up in Dawsonville, Georgia. And it was at a golf resort, but I didn't play golf. And when I got there, they didn't have a room for me, because the rooms, they didn't have the rooms right. They didn't have a room for me. And the general manager said, you can stay in my room. I'll go home for the night. And if you know how golf clubs are done, there's a place on top of most golf clubs, they call it the Nest, where a general manager or somebody of influence around has as quarters. Well, he let me stay there. And when I woke up in the morning, literally, I felt like I could talk to God, because where the Nest was the highest point on the property. And when you walk out, it was just pretty views. And when that happened in 1994, I built a cabin up in the mountains in 1995. That's how moving it was for me. Mm-hmm. But it was just waking up that first day, because once they moved me back to the lodge and had room for me, you didn't have the same views, and I didn't get the same feeling. I didn't see the deer, I didn't see the clouds forming, the sun off and off. So, but that day just changed me forever. So I always think of that day in 1994 as being the day that changed it. Cause like up until then, I was your normal megalomaniac, you know, the person who ends with the most stuff wins, that kind of stuff, you know, like my first car I got when I got out of school was a BMW, not a BMW, it was a Porsche. Then I got a BMW, then I got a Corvette, and like all these things that you thought completed you or made you fuller or added some value to your existence or somehow. And like, it was clear to me by the time I was probably late 20s, early 30s, that stuff wasn't the answer, even though I think we're largely sold that if you got a bigger house, you're going to be happy now. If you got this, you're going to be happy.
Well, so it sounds like you had this big experience and awareness of God at that moment. Can you describe what that was?
Yeah, it was an understanding that it was an understanding that's kind of hard for me to put in words, that like everything that I thought, like how I can be conditioned, while some of it was true, it wasn't all true. You know what I mean? Like, and here's the conundrum that most hippies have. How do I be in the world but not of it?
Right.
You know, and that's the conundrum that most hippies have. Because you still got to eat, you're going to be on the grid most likely, you still have to pay electric bill, you still have to go to the grocery store, you still have to put gas in the car. So I go from being this megalomaniac and now I'm a hippie. The moment that I got it was, and I don't know if, it's hard to say I got it because it wasn't like something I could put in a cage. I just understood that life, like we like to think that we possess life, but I understood that I didn't possess a life. It was that I was life, I was just a part of life, and it was part of a spontaneous happening, and that I just had to go with that flow. And much of our struggle is due to our non-acceptance. Like we project the way a thing should be, or the way we anticipate it to be, or the way we think it'll be, and that leads to our disappointment. And I began to understand that like I couldn't dictate the way everything ended up, and it wasn't that life was happening on all these different levels for all these different people, and they're all happening spontaneously, and I had to I got this awareness to step back and understand I was just a part of it, that I didn't possess life. I wasn't this thing that was this entity that was in control, and I didn't have my destiny. I didn't control it, and all these mantras that you hear that I don't believe in anymore. I realized, yeah, I had to learn. It taught me to go with the flow. It taught me that things really didn't matter. Now, with that said, I still think you need to keep the lights on. So there's the conundrum. So that led me on that journey. And as I was on that journey, what was amazing was the people. That's why I believe so much of communication is not verbal, because people had been in my life already that were already on that spiritual path and far past whatever linear approach to spirituality that I have entrenched in my brain. And all of a sudden they would talk to me about it. They've never talked to me about it before. Then all of a sudden they'll talk to me about it. And it just started happening. I remember my father would always talk about it. And I'm my father's son. I know I'm his favorite kid, but he would all of a sudden start talking to me about all these spiritual things. And it was stuff he would never talk. We never talk. We talk about, Michael Jordan and, who shot the last jump shot, who hit the last home run. But all of a sudden he started sharing to me all his spiritual insights and everything like that. And that was refreshing. And that's from my own father. So that world was there. I just had to tap into that vibration, if you will. It was there the whole time. It was just me not tapping into that. It wasn't like my dad wasn't there for me.
Right.
It was just when the light turned on, he was like, he knew to talk about it.
Right.
I didn't say anything to him. He just spoke about it.
That's so interesting, because I have this experience sometimes, and other people will say the same thing that I'm about to say, but I didn't have this awareness that you just described until just now. So I might do like a deep meditation. I might just really be praying real deeply to God, and then go to the store or go shopping or something. And then I'll find that people are speaking to me in more frequently than they would otherwise. And you just said tapping into a vibration. And I guess that's what that is.
Yeah. Because I believed, even though like, and you know me and you battle about this all the time about words. Words are one form of communication, but I believe, and quite effective. I mean, because if we didn't use words right now, nobody would understand what we were saying. But there's also a frequency that you emit as a human being and as a source of life,
Right.
That you can't exactly quantify it,
Right.
but when somebody when it resonates with and connects you with others, you know it. You know what I'm saying? So like that's why certain things, especially in the spiritual realm, are hard to put into words. But that became true. I met people. I started hiking, and I loved hiking. It put me in nature again. I loved it. I had a house. Go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I don't want to interrupt you because I wanted you to talk about your house in the mountains.
Okay. When I put the house up in the mountains, I had done a lot of little jobs like around the house, like I put a floor in, but I never built my own house. It was like $90,000, right? And when I went up there initially, it was funny. Initially, I had all these thoughts. I said, I'm black, all these white people gonna hate me. I never once in 16, 17 years did I experience any racism overtly. You know, maybe it happened behind my back, but nothing happened in my face. My dad, mom, they're gonna burn crosses on you. Nobody burnt a cross on my door. Worst thing went across my door was a deer. You know, might have been a bear come across the backyard. But in it, I found peace, and I found peace. That's what I always think about. I was like, once you get that inner peace, it silences all the questions. It silences all the rumbles. Now, I read everything I could read. I went on the internet. I searched everybody I could search. Anybody that came through Metro Atlanta, anywhere around me that was a guru, I went and sat down and listened to them. I remember I got to a point that I built my second cabin, and my second cabin was really an epiphany moment, another epiphany, and this would have been about 2000, because it was really big. It was bigger than my house in the city. I had hot tubs. I mean, it had all the best accommodations. Felt like I could shake hands with God every morning. I put my cloth out on my deck. I enclosed it, and I did all this stuff. I could go out there and sit in my little rug and do my yoga, meditate, and it got me. The first day I got the certificate of occupancy, I understood it. I was like, this is just bricks. I mean, this is just wood and steel and nails. You know, even though it took 10 months to build, and even though it was really pretty, it was just sticks and nails. And I was like, there can be no thing that I find identity in. That identity can't be in a thing for me. For others, others they're cool with it. If BMW do it for you, good. But it just, for me, there was no thing. Even that beautiful house was just a house.
That was going to fulfill you.
There's nothing to fill me up. There was none of that was going to fill me up.
So let me ask you this. I've heard people say what I'm about to say, and I think I felt this for a millisecond, maybe in the last year, about being at one with nature and it being feeling that you're at one with everything, like definitely nature, but every human being, just everything. And I love the late Wayne Dyer, and you know, I listen to his recordings a lot.
And I listen to a lot of Wayne Dyer as well.
You do?
Oh, I bought all his books.
Yeah.
I was ready to go to Hawaii. I was ready to go to Hawaii, hang out with him.
I love him. I mean, he is somebody that I just believe. Just believe what this man says.
Right.
And so, so after he passed, I was on this website that I don't know if his daughters run this spiritual website or they were just contributing to it or what. But I think one of the daughters had written something about how she had connected with him spiritually. And he said something like, and I'm just characterizing this, he said something like, so he's in heaven now, okay? And so he said something like he really wishes that he had realized just how much we are one with everything. And I feel like that must be in such an enormous way after we pass away, because I'm sure he felt that as a human, you know, in human form. So anyway, I'm saying all that to get to, I know how much you love the outdoors. I know you like to bike. And you just mentioned, the mountains. And is that it because you feel at one with God?
Yes, that was exactly it. Like I said, when that thing happened in 1994, that's exactly what it was. It was like, it was really clear. So, and all the seeking and practicing and trying and stuff like that, you think it's to bring about this thing. And I think the thing that most people don't understand is that thing already's there.
Right.
You are life. You are life.
It's inside you.
It's inside you. It's there already. Right now, you have a brain that has an ego and is constantly trying to put labels on stuff. He's trying to put stuff in a box so you can understand it. But all of these millions of interactions are happening simultaneously around the globe continuously. And so, for me, it was just became an understanding that it's not something I possess. Yes, when I've raised my arm, I did raise my arm. I told myself to consciously raise my arm. But if I'm out doing something, it wasn't like the forces of evil came against me. It could happen to anybody. And so not to struggle, for me, the struggle was removed from existence for me when I understood that I wasn't life, that I didn't possess it. It possessed me. And to flow with it, to accept what happens, the good, the bad, or whatever we perceive as bad, but to accept it.
So here's the thing. How do you do that so easily? And before you answer, is it just because the knowing is that deep? Because what you're describing is what I aspire to. And what is comforting to me is I know that as long as I'm honest, with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit about where I am, and I stay connected, and as long as I do that, then I know I'm going to get through, because I've gotten through anyway. So I've had so many blessings. I've had so many blessings, and still I'm not where you are with what you just said. So how do you do that so easily?
Well, what happens is you understand that, I don't know if I was born through a woman, my mother. That was not, I tease her all the time and say I picked her, but clearly did I really pick her? You know what I'm saying? Because if I had to be born again, I would want to come through the same mother and father.
Right.
But that's how blessed I feel like, but that wasn't due to nothing that I could do.
Exactly.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me. That was something else, something way more powerful to me. So in that, I had to realize I have to surrender whatever that was, decided to put me through May Catherine, that I just have to trust in it. I just have to believe. I just have to trust in it. Because if it could do that, the best gift I've ever been given, it'll take care of all the rest of the stuff that I want to worry about and trip about. And so what you speak of to me is surrendering.
Right.
It's surrendering.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It's surrendering your power and understanding that it's not your power. Like I said, that grace that gave you your mom, that gave you all the blessings that you had, right? Trust it completely to furnish you for all of your existence. And once you get that, and people like try to get it in pieces, and I think that's where I was. Like I got it in pieces, and I can remember how old I was. So it was funny because it was 12 years ago. It was 12 years ago, and I don't know if it was around somebody dying. My aunt had quadruple, and she's like a second mom to me, and she had quadruple heart bypass surgery, and she's like, well, I might not make it, and I was in the hospital at University of Pennsylvania, and I was like, wow, all I've ever known is her be here. She's too young and I went into my reasoning why she shouldn't be here and all that stuff, and that day it all went away because I was like, there I go trying to use my mental capacity and my ego to say what should be and instead of accepting the fact that her creator wants to call her home. Who am I to argue with that? Mm-hmm. Now she's still alive. I mean, for my sake, I'm glad she's still alive 12 years later. But all of under that stress of losing my aunt, and everybody knows I got a lot of aunts, but that's my favorite one, Aunt D. But so. What that day, once I left, nothing ever, it helped me deal. Once I could deal with that, I realized even if I left, okay, I was cool. And then, I mean, my time must be up. Who am I to question it? That doesn't mean I go jump off of buildings and stuff to try to go out early. Don't you know what I mean? Don't mean I don't take care of myself. I don't get up and go to the gym. Don't try to eat. Don't mean that. It just means do all I can, but understand the greater power than me runs this, and surrender to it. Whatever name you want to give it, you can give it, but it exists. Whatever, and that's why I call religions traditions. Whatever traditions people believe in, from whatever side of the globe they come, there are many traditions taught. They all point. They all point to the similar things, whether it's Buddha teachings, whether it's the Quran, whether it's you name it. But for me, I understood I have to surrender and trust whatever that power is that it's delivered for me since my existence, and it will, and I don't have to question it.
And so how do you talk to God? What's your spiritual practice?
That's good. I like that question. No, I do. I like that question because everyone believes it's in a practice. Now watch this. It's going to be a really confusing answer for you because I don't think there's nothing wrong with having a practice. Anything that points you to a thing, great, because it's better than not going trying to seek the thing. So I want people. I always say it's nothing wrong with being in that church 7 days in a week. That's nothing wrong with that. So that's fine. So my thing is quiet. I love stillness. So, but in stillness, I don't want to think about nothing. So it's devoid of thought. I don't want to have conscious thought at all. So what was it about? It was about nothingness, which is really
absolutely.
That's my practice.
So I get that. But do you ever? And it's fine if you don't. I'm just asking. Do you ever just talk to God? I mean like I'm talking to you right now. Do you ever just talk to God in your thoughts?
I believe,
and I understand and agree that we can talk without using words.
Right.
But I'm just asking if you ever have a conversation with God.
Well, I'm going to answer this another way. I'm going to answer this another way. When I was a small child, I was about 12 years old. I was given this, like, how am I going to live my life? Am I going to live my life? You know, am I going to just try to make as much money as possible? Am I going to try to help people? Am I going to be Martin Luther King? Am I going to be Malcolm X? How do I want to do this? And that's why the blueprint wasn't mine. It was just given to me. It told me how to conduct myself. And so I didn't follow it or listen to it until I was older. And when I got older, and I'm still in my 20s at the time, I get it. I'm like, you can't deviate from that. You just got to flow with that. When I surrendered, and surrender didn't happen like 100 to 0. You know what I mean? It happened like 100 to 60 to 40 down to wherever it is now. Because still part of me pops up. I still want to make every putt I see. But even in golf, all I care about is the process. If I do my part, I can live whatever result happens. Whatever happens, even if it means I'm unsuccessful by the golf term, so be it. Because I trust and I've talked to you about this in the past. I trust in whatever that is that's guided me, and whatever my ego part is to not get in the way. It's not to subvert it. If it tells me to do it, do it.
So if fear arises in you about some particular situation, what do you do? Do you get still? Do you get quiet and remember that you trust, or what do you do? How do you handle it?
And that's a really good question too, because fear. I'm raised by a career Marine. My father's a career Marine, so I'm not afraid of many things on a physical level. It's not going to scare me. I mean, I was teasing a friend last night. She had these big bull mastiffs, and she was doing something. I was like, well, I better behave because you got 400 pounds of dogs sitting around, or these 180-pound dogs sitting around. I better behave, right? So I have an inkling of fear, but I'm at peace with whatever life direction it gives me. So, like I said, because humans, the ego doesn't want to die. We want to exist. We don't ever want to go away. But there are no permanent things. Everything is temporary. And so I understand the worst that could happen to me would be to lose my mind and for me no longer to exist. Not that I want it to happen, but most situations, I have nothing to be afraid of. I'm definitely not going to be afraid of any man. I'm definitely, there may be circumstances, that bring about that, but I just trust it in the process. And so fear, not a big part of my existence, because whatever happens, it happens. What fear does is it paralyzes you. And it's not good for you, because the thing that you fear is an illusion more often than not.
Yeah, I tell myself it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's real. It's just a
Right.
thing. So we were just talking offline about how you don't really acknowledge your birthday because every day, I guess, you celebrate you. Is that tied in with your spirituality?
This happened long before I could even say the word spirit. I never understood why people would jump up and down because they were born on this day. I'm like, what y'all doing the other 364 days? And so I'm like, ain't you missing the party? I'm like, I believe that every day should be treated like your birthday. You should be treating yourself every day. You should be enjoying it. You should be enjoying life every day. We were talking before. I told you, I don't have too many bad days. And don't get me wrong, I have days where I'm sick, but mentally where I'm defeated doesn't happen a lot, because I'm happy because of existence. But you got to know it doesn't take much to make me happy. I can see the dew off a piece of wood, and I'm giddy. You know what I'm saying? So it don't take much for me. It sounds funny, but I can see a rainbow. I take pictures of rainbows. I'm like, look at a rainbow. Somebody would probably say that's the simplest thing in the world. Why you trip over a rainbow? I saw a rainbow driving down Power Fair. I took a picture of it.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people love rainbows.
Yeah. So right. So like, it don't take much to make me see the beauty of existence. So that's what I believe. It's funny. I'm gonna segue here. I believe there's two forces. There's love, and there's everything else.
Right.
And so I want to live my life through love, and I want to let everything else that I know it exists. It's not that I'm oblivious to it and that it exists, but I know there's love and there's everything else. And so when I act or do something or interaction, am I acting out of love? Am I doing it from that place? And I don't even really have that question anymore, because if I even get the unction, because I'm physically human, to like have that evil thought, I immediately let it dissipate and silence myself. I don't want to go there. I'm not going to go there. So the only way, now don't get me wrong, I will shoot you. If you did something, somebody was doing something to you, I would shoot you, because I'm not going to let them harm you.
That's how I feel.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that aside, in extreme measure, I'm not going to get caught up in a bunch of minutiae about negativity. It's just a waste of my time.
Well, and so, sometimes at work you manage a bar. Sometimes at work you might have to engage with somebody, and you just bring yourself back.
Right. Sure. It happens, but I am blessed. It's not happened while in my presence nearly as much as people might think it has. It's like people, like I said again, it's the vibration. People sense that I ain't trying to bring them no harm. All I wanted them is to be having a good time. Let's have a festive time and let's get on with our lives. It's a role we play, not to get caught up into it. Sometimes people come in, they have a lot of negativity. I just know to shun that person. Sometimes I listen. If you got too much negativity, I'm not going to drown in your negativity. That's your party. It's a bar. I understand we in a church. So get your drink in the corner and you can brood. You know what I mean? Cool.
We were talking about vibrations. And so, I'm very sensitive to energy. And how do you deal with that?
By recognizing that it all exists. In order for there to be what we would call good energy, higher vibration, it has to be lower vibration. So when it happens, it happens. You acknowledge it. If you can help. If you can't help, get out the way.
Sometimes I might go to a meeting. For example, I used to go to meetings and work meetings, and I would say a prayer beforehand, but sometimes I might forget. So if I said the prayer beforehand, then the meeting would go fine. And then sometimes I might forget the meeting. For me, my experience of it, it wouldn't go fine. I would feel energy in this room, and then when I leave, I still have that energy on me. And so, do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And somebody gave me this example once of, she said, if you have people in a room, and then let's say there's somebody in that room that has like the worst negative energy, right? And then they leave the room, but the energy is still in the room. And she said, let's say you come in and then you have this beautiful energy. She says, that energy has to have something to attach itself to. And I thought that was really interesting. I think there's some truth to that.
There is some truth to that. But in all discussions and all relationships, there's two. So there has to be a participation from both parties. So when you run into that negative energy, you can engage with it or not engage with it. I like to use it, especially in forms of relationships, because everybody's playing a role in that relationship, and you can affirm it or you can disaffirm it. You could play your part in it and continue the minutia and do that dog taste and tail thing, or when you're aware of it and you know what the phenomena is. When you know what the phenomena is, like, you know, people at that meeting, you know who was going to be on point, you know who wasn't going to be sharp. So when you're aware of it, you have to use that awareness to say, I know what they're going to say before they say it, but you don't have to engage in it. You don't have to get in the mud with it, so you just don't have to.
So what do you think? Well, let me ask you this first. I have this, there's this prayer in A Course in Miracles that starts out, I'm only here to be truly helpful. I really love this prayer. I think it's a real high prayer. What do you think our purpose is, or your personal purpose? Because I know you to be a very generous person.
Okay, that's good. I like that question. When I answer, my answer to that question is, when I think about purpose, I don't like to live life projecting out next year, 2 years out, 3 years out. So my purpose today was to get up and go to the gym. I like to keep that window, that focus, much smaller. If anything else happens, fine. It has to happen organically. I'm not going to be trying to because people are trying to find their life's mission, and that if you were a trash man or you were the president, one life is not more valuable than the other in the spirit world.
Yeah. And well, so I'm asking if you think that you are here to. I know you're a giving person, so I wonder if you think that part of your purpose is to serve your fellow man in some way.
No, because I'm not drawn to my purpose. My purpose for me is a much narrower defined thing. It's simply to get up one day at a time, and in that day, not try to be anything, but in that day, do and be who I want to be that day. And so I don't go down the road. That's why I say I don't project. I think projection is a thing, and I think projection is a thing, and I think it's, if you run a Fortune 1000 company, I think you need to work on projections. I think that's a place for it. Where do I want to see this 30 years from now? I think if you got in your financial life, I think you need to be able to look at where am I going to be, what I need to set up for this, what I got to do for that. I think that makes sense. In my walk in life as a spirit, I don't worry about, I have no concern about purpose, because it is what it is. It is what it does. It's a day-to-day thing. If it's a conversation I had with this person, or a conversation I met this young man, and I had met him maybe 12, 14 years ago. He came into the bar. He said, listen, man, I came in here to tell you something. I didn't know you would still be here, but my friend said you were still here because you left, because I left and then I came back. And he said, you weren't even talking to me. He said, you were talking to somebody else about doing something. He said, now I own 8 rental properties. And he said, I listened to you talk. I own 8. And I wanted to thank you. And he said, my man, I wanted to thank you. And he's about 40 years old. I was like, well, good. But if it inspires, great. But I'm not purposely trying to.
Right. And that's not exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. But I cannot believe that I'm having, I'm blanking out. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones.
You know I don't. Everybody else in the world does.
I know, and I'm trying to think of Arya, one of the characters, and oh my God.
The Game of Thrones is so huge.
Yeah, but it's like no one. That's what I'm no one. Like, she went through this training. She is a warrior. Okay. I mean, she's a kid. Right. She's like a teenager now.
Gotcha.
And so her training was that she could put on any mask and she could be anybody any size, any race, anything. And so in order to have the ability to do that, you had to be no one. And so that's what's coming to me as you were talking, because what you were describing is not what I was asking you.
Right.
But I feel like you are naturally a person who gives to others. And so, and like I was saying, I feel like I believe that our purpose is to be truly helpful. Now, we don't have to follow that or anything,
Right.
but I believe I subscribe to that. I believe I'm only here to be truly helpful and to serve God as best I can in whatever way he wants me to. And so I was trying to get that from you, and you do that, but you do that as no one. And it's not any different from the way that I might do it or the way that somebody else might do it. You agree?
No, I do. I do agree. I do agree. But the reason I always put this pin in this when people talk about purpose is because I think they get caught up in this end goal. Mm-hmm. They get caught up way out there, and I'm like, just be that today. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
Just today. Let tomorrow take care of itself. I'll just worry about today.
I agree. And to speak to that for a second, like say with this podcast, like it is something that I'm doing through God because I want to and I feel it, but I don't know what it'll turn into.
That's exactly it.
And the reason that I'm so clear about that is because you remember Sandra Bland?
Uh-huh.
So there's a documentary out on her and, about the whole journey up into her dying. And her purpose, she felt, was to shine a light, on Black men being killed by police. And I mean, it was really driving her. She was really, angry about it, and she was passionate about shedding light on it. And as it turns out, she did shed light on it, but she had no idea that it would be a result of her not being alive.
Right.
And so that just struck me in a big way, because you just don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. I mean, she left a big gift, but at the cost of her life.
Yeah, I didn't know that about Sandra Bland.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So what do you think happens when you die?
Good question. My mind at one level would like to think that we go to heaven, because that's what I was taught, that you go to heaven or go to hell. Did you have this spiritual place where you go? There are others who say that you're reincarnated, you're this, you come back as a butterfly, or you come back as your favorite pet, or something like that.
Well, we evolve and we come back. We come back as a higher self.
As a higher self. Well, there were some pretty people back out here now that were pretty low from where they were. And I think a lot of that stems from the mind. And me and my aunt got in this conversation about a year ago. I said, what happened if when you die, you're just dead? What happens if when you just die, you're just dead? You turn back into the chemicals, go back to ashes, dust to dust, and you're just dead. What happened? But I don't think the mind likes to ever surrender to understand that it too was temporary, and it too will not go forth. That being said, I believe what you put in people can far outlast your existence. So I don't want to answer both sides. I don't want to answer it 8 different ways, but I believe what you put inside people is much more important than what you give to them, because it can way outlast. Like a Harriet Tubman, body might be gone 100 years, but what the impact that she has on society. So
right.
So in that way, but I believe any of those things are possible. I don't think none of us truly know. And I think it may be just that when you die, you're dead. So you better do your best work now.
Well, I'm so glad that's not true.
Well, ready?
I'm so glad
is that a fact? Is that a fact?
Well, I know it as a fact.
But do you know it as a fact?
Yes.
How do you know it as a fact?
Because I have experiences with the people that I've lost.
Okay.
And also, well, that's a fact right there. But separate from that, the mind of God, the consciousness of God is inside of us. So that doesn't die when we die to this form.
Well, that's what I agree with that part, but also I also, like I said, I'm not one side or the other on this, but it could be that like your communication, if we had a video camera here, even though you could talk to somebody dead, we're not going to physically see them in that form again. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say there's room for it all, because like I said, you can far outlive your physical existence. That I believe without question. Mm-hmm. But it also could, the physical form. That's what I'm saying. You in the spirit world, that's putting inside of them, but it's still not the physical body. It's the physical body. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Well, yeah.
So
I agree with that.
And so what happens to you after you die? That like we couldn't have this conversation right now. We couldn't be put on mic if I was a ghost, or if I was, you know what I mean. I had to have this physical body. So yes, could it be either way? And could it? But my whole thing is, we got to use what we got now, because this is the only thing we have for certain. That's all. That's my whole point.
Right. And it's got an expiration date.
Right. And it's got an expiration date. But all of us do. Everything's temporary. Everything's temporary. Do you embrace that fact though? Or do you fight with it?
Me personally?
You personally.
Do I embrace that my body has an expiration date? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that's important, because a lot of people don't.
How could they not? I don't understand.
No, I think most people are afraid of their demise and are not comfortable with death. I think that's most people.
Well, those are separate things though.
Okay.
I mean, I accept that my body has an expiration date. I accept death, but I could see somebody being in fear of death.
Yeah,
also.
I think most people are.
But yeah, I think I'm not, only because of I so want to be with the people that I've lost. So
Got you.
I'm not afraid, but I do want to stay in this form until I'm really, really happy.
No,
I want to get to happy.
Got you.
And I used to say I wanted to be happy for like 5 years, and then you can take me. But recently, I've said, let's make it 10 years.
You're stretching it out. You're stretching it out. Real comfortable with this death thing, huh? That's funny. That's funny.
So, Jazz, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to add? No, it was my pleasure.
When you told me you wanted to do this, I told you I was happy for you even when you first mentioned it. I'm like, great.
So maybe we'll talk again.
Love to.
We'll have like a part 2.
Love to.
Well, thank you for joining us, and let's start healing.
Let's start healing.